Hi everyone, welcome. This is Stephanie Hawkins at Archive Social, and we are going to get started in just about 1 minute. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. Welcome everyone to our webinar on social media oversight in the face of records laws and school safety. We have a great webinar planned today. I'm really excited about it. So just to start off, we'd like to do a quick housekeeping slide. And so all attendees are on mute. However, feel free to use the question function to submit questions. And where you'll find that is, you'll see you have a control panel for GoToWebinar. So over on the right, you'll see a panel for questions, and you can just type your questions in there, and you can select them to either go to the group or just to the speakers. And there'll be time for Q&A throughout the presentation, although most of the questions we'll do for the end. So just to give our speaker a chance to get through the presentations, but please do send your questions through, and as we have breaks, I can flag them. And then finally, this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording via email after the presentation, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we would like to do a quick intro. I'm Stephanie Hawkins. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Archive Social. And just a little bit about Archive Social. We are a social media archiving company. We work with nearly 1,500 government agencies and school districts around the country, including city and county government, local law enforcement, and of course, school districts. In the past year, we've been really excited to have the opportunity to partner with NSPRA to deliver educational content like these webinars in our area of expertise, which of course is social media records and oversight. And then as you can see actually in that little icon below, we recently released an ebook on the subject of social media records for school districts, and it features interviews with about a dozen different school communication leaders, records experts, and attorneys, all sharing their experiences with social media records management. So if you're interested in reading that, you can download it from our website, and I'll send out a link to that in the email after this webinar as well. So, okay, on to the exciting part. Joining us today is Cherie Johnson from Stafford County Public Schools in Virginia. Cherie is the Director of Communications and the FOIA Officer for her school district, where she manages a team of 5 and also manages all the communications, including the website, the social media accounts, and everything for the district. And before she came to Stafford County Schools, she was actually a broadcast journalist, and I'm excited to say I think she is the very first Emmy Award-winning journalist we've ever had join us in our webinar series. So it's very exciting. We've asked her to come speak today because she has a really unique story about social media in her district. And specifically, she's had this experience this year of making some significant changes to the way that her district manages social media. And during that process, I think you're going to find that she made some really important discoveries that sparked even more changes. And we think her story is going to be really useful for everyone who's listening. So we're very excited to have her here and glad you all could join us today. Okay, so with that being said, Cherie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So Cherie, I know that we've talked a little bit about your background, and I'm wondering maybe you can start off by just telling the audience a little bit about your district and your role, and then kind of the structure of your communications team.
Okay. Well, Stafford County is about 50 miles south of Washington, D.C. We have about 29,000 students and 31 schools, and Stafford County Public Schools is the ninth largest school division in the Commonwealth. And I have a team of there's about five of us in the communication office. We're newly reorganized, so we are now the Office of Strategic Communication and Community Development. We have a communication analyst, and our communication analyst actually handles all of our social media. We have a community engagement manager, administrative assistant, and our digital communication development manager, also known as our webmaster, handles all of our website events. So we're pretty excited right now. We're a small team, but we pack a powerful punch, and we just recently won several awards from NetSpress, so we're very excited about that. So yeah, pretty amazing team, and just coming together, working very hard.
Okay, great. And I know that over the last year, you've had a lot of changes to your social media, which we're going to talk about over the course of this webinar. But what I'd love would be if you could take us back to a year ago and just paint a picture for us and tell the audience a little bit about your social media at that time, what was going on with it, and kind of what kinds of challenges you were having.
So if you go back about a year, we had a Facebook and a Twitter account. Since that time, we've expanded and increased more social media. But about a year ago, we had a Facebook and Twitter account. We really were not sure how many other accounts we had out there because we had so many with the different schools, some teachers, some of the sports. So we had a large number of accounts out there that we just weren't quite sure on. But the ones we definitely knew about were our division Facebook and Twitter pages. We use the social media pages to communicate with the public. We used it to talk about our accomplishments in the division, positive news. We posted news stories, also public notices, emergencies, weather closures. So we sort of use social media for things like that in a positive aspect. It was just another avenue to get information to the public. Okay, our communication analyst again handles social media, so that is her forte, and she handles everything. We were having some challenges though, because there was a lack of oversight. There's only five of us, and there's one of her, and besides social media, she has a ton of other things going on, as many other communication practitioners would probably understand as well. So social media was not her only concentration. And so we could not sit there in front of the computer 24/7 watching to see what was happening on social media. So the oversight that we wanted wasn't quite there. So one thing that was positive, though, was law enforcement. Law enforcement, our sheriff's office was very proactive and they were very helpful. A lot of times the sheriff's office would call us and tell us that they saw something on social media that alerted them, and they would let us know. So that was pretty helpful. So that was a challenge, was that we couldn't see what was going on, and the sheriff's department would have to help us. And so in that sense, we were not proactive, we were reactive. And in communications, that's never a good thing. You don't always want to react to things. You do want to get in front of it and be proactive. So those were just a few of the challenges that we had. We also had social media guidelines. We really didn't have a social media policy in place. We had some guidelines that some people would possibly follow, but we didn't have anything hard and concrete in place. So those are just some of the challenges that we did face about a year ago.
Okay, great. And I'm sure that those are some challenges that a lot of people on this call can identify with as well. So something that's really interesting about your role, I know, is that you, in addition to being the Director of Communications and Strategic Engagement, you are also the FOIA officer at your school. And I know that's kind of unique in terms of who's in charge of FOIA requests at a school. Sometimes it's somebody associated with the communications department. Sometimes it's somebody from legal. And in your case, it is you. So how did that start to affect your view of your social media activity?
Well, that's correct. I am the FOIA officer for Stafford County Public Schools, so that means I'm in charge of fulfilling the FOIA request. They contact me, and I have to go and get the information and get it to them in a timely fashion. So basically what happened one day, someone from our technology department approached me and had a discussion with me about FOIA information and also records retention. And so they started talking to me about providing records for people if they were, not here. So that's when I realized that, okay, we have a problem because with social media, we're not archiving. And if someone came and asked us for some information from several months ago or a year ago, we would not have any way of providing it to them. And thus, we wouldn't be in compliance. And so that's when I realized, okay, we have a situation here that we need to take care of. One of the examples that our technology department gave to me was, for example, if there's a legal case and someone came and they requested information because somebody made a threat on social media, um, would you be able to pull that information and give that to the police for a court case? No, I would not be, not in the situation that we were in. So that's when we began to really look at our situation and how could we be in compliance and how could we start archiving and recording that information so that if we are asked for the information, we could provide it. So I think that conversation with our technology department on records retention and providing information. I think that was an eye-opening and a turning point for us in this department. But that's when we realized, okay, we're not in compliance. If someone wanted to ask us for records, we simply would not have it. And that's when we began to take steps to rectify that.
That's so interesting that that one conversation just really triggered that eye-opening moment for you. So okay, so you realized you had this problem that if you needed to, produce records for a FOIA request from a social media conversation, you might not be able to do it. So what did you decide to do as the solution?
Well, one of the things we decided to do was work with Archive Social. And one of the things that we really like about it is you archive things instantaneously. Like, for example, if someone does put a threat on social media and decides 5 or 10 minutes later that they're going to delete the post and move on, well, it's already been, archived and we have it to maybe provide to police in an investigation. So that is one of the great things because our communication analyst, she simply does not have the time to go through and try to archive it all on her own. So that's a big help. But I was able to also reach out to all of the principals at the schools to try to begin to determine how many accounts we have, and we soon realized that we have a large amount of social media accounts and we really need to streamline that and cut down on that. For example, one of our high schools, they have a baseball Twitter account. They've got golf, they've got softball, they've got football. And so we're like, okay, as we're trying to make this list, we're like, okay, maybe you can have an athletics account instead of all of these different sports accounts. So one of the things we quickly realized as we began to put a list together for Archive Social, we really started to get a handle on what we were dealing with, and we really do have a large number of accounts that we really do need to streamline and cut down on. So it's really made us take a hard look at our social media account and try to streamline it, and also to be safer with the accounts as well. Because, for example, if someone used profanity or made a threat on social media, and we are at a school or at an event, we're not in front of the computer, we don't know this. Well, now we get an email, we get a text message, we are informed ASAP that, hey, an alert comes out that this has been said on your social media account, and we can begin to alert our security team, and we can alert people quickly, even if we're not in front of our computer, but we get an alert very quickly. So it's been very helpful in just making our social media accounts just work for us, and it's been very helpful.
So that's so interesting. So you're essentially saying that, during the process of setting up your social media archiving system, you were kind of doing all of this examining of your social media, and you actually found out that you just had more accounts than you even knew about.
Yeah.
which I know from other conversations with you, that sort of sparked a whole new world of social media management. And so I know that we put together this slide here, just kind of summing up what you learned during this initial phase of taking a closer look at your social media. And then we'll talk a little bit about, kind of the outcome of these things, but, maybe just for everyone's sake, you can sum up kind of the top three things you learned at the very beginning of this inquiry.
So some of the things that we learned at the very beginning, we learned that we need to make sure we do a better job of keeping records with social media. I think one of the things that we saw, like with FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, if you don't have the documents, then you don't have to create it. So with the FOIA, we just thought, well, if it's not archived on social media, then I don't have to create it. So that was one of the misconceptions that we had, and that's why we really didn't worry about it in the past. But then in talking with our records retention folks, we learned, no, you are supposed to have it and you are supposed to provide it. And so that's when we started taking steps to make sure that we could archive the information and be able to provide it if asked. Our office is also responsible for keeping a master list of all the social media accounts in the division. And so we really did not have a handle on all of the accounts. So when we were setting up everything for Archive Social, they require you to have a list of all the accounts. So that's when we had to go out to the principals, go out to all the department heads, and begin to create that master list. And then again, that started opening up our eyes as to how many accounts we have out there. And then the third thing is, we're able to better monitor our social media accounts for safety reasons, as well, in light of, some of the recent school shootings. And, there's definitely more emphasis on school safety. So, social media is where a lot of things happen. So if you can get ahead of it and be proactive, that's always very helpful. So, Archive Social has helped us to be alerted to things a lot quicker than we were in the past.
Okay, great. And I think what would be really interesting would be that now that you've begun implementing these changes, it's been a few months since you actually started archiving, and it's been quite a journey up to that point to even figure out that that's what you needed to do. What does your new normal look like? So what's improved so far, and where do you see your social media as a district going?
Well, I think we have improved because now I feel a lot more comfortable that we're in a much better place when it comes to records retention. And if people call up and they need information, I feel confident that we could, be able to provide it to them because now we're archiving. So I feel better in terms of compliance issues as far as record retention, as far as FOIA requests. As far as if there's a court case or law enforcement needed something from our social media accounts, I feel more confident that we would be able to provide that information. In terms of keyword alerts, I'm very happy with how you put in certain words that they'll alert you to. I think it's great. I love how they alert you when there's certain things that are said on social media and bring to your attention. I might be in a meeting, I might be, somewhere across campus, but I'm able to look at my cell phone or a text message and really keep up to date with what's going on social media without having to sit there, in front of the computer monitoring it daily. So I feel a lot better. I feel like our team is in a much better place with it. And I think we're more proactive when it comes to social media as opposed to reactive. And, not that we want a threat or anything to happen, but if it were to happen, I think we are in a much better place to probably locate that individual than say maybe 6 or 8 months ago.
Okay, great. And I would love it if you could talk a little bit about school safety in particular, because I know that prior to having your keyword alert set up, you talked a little bit about earlier about the fact that you would get messages from the sheriff's office saying, hey, we saw something on your social media, just to let you know, we've taken care of it. And now you are actually able to go to them and alert them that you've seen something. Isn't that right?
Yes, and that's a great feeling too. That is a really good feeling. As a matter of fact, we have actually partnered with our sheriff's office for the school safety task force. So we have sheriff's deputies, and we also have school administrators that meet monthly to talk about ways to keep our schools safer. So we are happy to come to that meeting and tell them some of the positive things we're doing in terms of social media. So that's been helpful. We have an open line of communication with the sheriff's office, and again, if we get an alert, we can share it with them, and that now we don't have to wait for them to tell us, but we can actually, play an active role and come to them and let them know what's going on in the school division and on social media. So it really has been, just a very proactive type of step in using social media.
That's great. That's absolutely great. Um, so moving forward, I know you've had all these changes since you've debuted your social media archiving, and I think you've set some new goals, right, for your social media use district-wide. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the changes you've made and what you're planning on doing in the near future?
Yes, well, we're really excited. Like I said, we had social media guidelines, but just recently, actually yesterday at a school board meeting last night, we actually put a social media policy forth for the school board to review for information, and we're hoping to come back in our July meeting for action. So we feel so confident, and we've just made such strides that we have moved from guidelines to a full-fledged social media policy, and we feel confident with that policy with some of the things that we have in place. So we are hopeful that will pass. So we really like having the social media policy. Also, we are actively taking steps to reach out to the schools to begin to try to cut down on the number of social media accounts we have, so we can really get a handle on it, because there's really no reason to have 50 million accounts. I think some of those can be streamlined, so we really are trying to consolidate accounts and really get a handle on that. And we are way more proactive with monitoring the social media sites for the schools. Like I said, we have 31 schools, and it's much easier to see what they're all doing, and it's much easier to have a handle on it, and that's been helpful. Even some things like profanity, we're able to immediately figure out which school and get in touch with the principal and let them take it from there. But we're able to have a quicker response time, if you will.
That's great, and I would assume that makes your pages more powerful and more relevant to the community as well, because you're able to kind of weed out those things that don't belong.
Absolutely. We're very pleased with it. I think we've made a lot of strides. We still have a ways to go, but we're very excited about it.
That's great. Well, it sounds like you've made some excellent strides this year. Thanks so much for walking us through what that process was like. And what I'd like to do now is just take some time for everybody in the audience to put their questions into the chat in the right. So really anything you want to ask Cherie, about social media management, about her team, about archiving, about the school safety issue, she's here to answer your questions. So go ahead and put those in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to give Cherie a second just to catch her breath. And then I'm going to ask her some of the questions that have come in. But while she's doing that, I just want to take a quick second to just build on what she talked about with regard to the archiving and social media records issue. It's really important, if you are a school district, just to make sure that you're in compliance when it comes to social media records. So like Cherie mentioned, it's a really easy problem to fix. We are here to help you understand and explore the issue. So we really encourage you to go to archivesocial.com and learn more. So two quick things I just want to mention before we go back to Cherie. The first is that we're here to help. My colleagues here in Durham are really experts at understanding, the social media and public records issues and how they affect school districts, especially specifically in all the different states. So if you are interested in getting a personalized 15-minute consultation with one of the folks on our team, all of these costumed, wonderful people here. You can reach out to me personally and send me an email. I'll be sending out an email after this webinar, and you can reply back to me, and I can hook you up with one of these guys. Or if you're going to be at the NSPRA seminar in 2 weeks, our director of marketing, who is all the way to the left in that photo, and our director of customer experience, who is the unicorn in the middle, are both going to be there. Neither of them are on the sales team, but they are experts in the topics of social media records, and they'd love to have a chat with you. So if you are going to be at NSPRA, do you want to just put a little note saying, hey, we'll be there in the comment section on the right, and then we can make sure to say hey to you when you're there. So with that said, let's take a look at some of these questions. Sheree, are you ready for these?
Yes, I'm all set. Yes.
Okay, and feel free to keep them coming in. Looks like we have about 20 questions right now. So we'll keep going, for as long as we possibly can. And if you think of one while she's talking, feel free to type it in. But I will just kind of go through these.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So we have Kendra asking, Cherie, I'm just curious if you've had any FOIA requests where you've had to tap into the social media archive yet.
No, I have not had any just yet. But if I did, we are all set and ready to go.
Okay, great. We have John asking, so it seems like if we start social media archiving, then the more social media accounts, the merrier, since Archive Social will both monitor and archive everything for us. Is that correct?
I don't know about the more the merrier, because in our case, we're trying to cut down. We have a lot, and we're just trying to streamline it. So we're trying not to have quite so many. So in our case, we're trying not to have too many. But so I don't know about the more the merrier. But it just really helps you if you have several. It does help you to keep track of all of them. But we just don't want to have too many.
Right. Makes complete sense.
And that's what the folks with our records retention and our technology department, they actually encourage that too. They're like, we've got way too many, and it will help the division if we can cut down on them, especially when we are trying to look at things like FOIA requests and records retention. It's easier if we just have a small amount.
Right. It makes perfect sense. It can be difficult to monitor, multiple accounts at multiple schools. So
yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Valerie is wondering if it would be possible, would you be willing to share the social media policy that you are using for your school once it's ready?
Sure. Yeah, sure. No problem. Yes, I would. Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Fingers crossed that it'll be passed.
Okay, perfect. Well, you and I can coordinate then on that. And then if anybody is interested in getting that from this webinar, we can make sure it goes out to them.
Sure.
Okay, so just a follow-up, because I think there's a lot of questions on the subject of, okay, we hear you saying that, it's important to slim down your pages, but how many pages should we have? So we've got Jeff asking, does this mean not having individual school pages, for example?
No, we have individual school pages. We have individual school pages. Then you have some teachers in the classrooms that have pages. Then you have several sports teams from one school have pages. You have clubs that they have a page. So it can get to be a lot. It can get to be a lot in just one school. So, and we also, not to mention, not just schools, our transportation department, some of our departments, our transportation department, they have a Twitter and a Facebook page. But it's great though. We're really excited. Like if buses are late, or they'll tweet out, hey, bus number such and such is running late. Another bus is coming to pick them up. So that's great, because that helps us out, because then we don't have to send out a mass notification to that school, those parents, to let them know the bus is late. So transportation, they're awesome with their Twitter account. So we have departments. Fine and Performing Arts. They have a lot of plays and activities going on. They've got a Facebook and Twitter page. So it can get to be a lot, not just the schools, but even when you start getting the departments in there too, because everybody wants to use social media to promote their events and to promote their activities, which we like. We just got to make sure that we don't have too many. And sometimes when you have all the different teachers and all the different classrooms, because it's our job, to monitor those and to make sure they're posting appropriate information, that kind of thing. And one of the issues that we're also trying to work on is sometimes people would post or create a social media account using their own personal email. And so we really had to get away from that and encourage them. You got to use the division email, the division email and not your personal one. Because if you leave, we still need a way to get back in there, and we keep a master list. We keep a master list of all of the social media accounts. So it's really been a challenge, but it's well worth it to just really get a better handle on social media in our division.
Right. Yeah, I see a lot of people in the comments section seem to be struggling with this. So let me follow that up with sort of a two-part question, which is a combination of two different people's questions here. The first one being a really specific one. With regards to consolidating accounts, how did your coaches respond when their team accounts got rolled into a larger athletic account? This person says, many of our high school sports teams have their own Twitter accounts with very loyal followings.
Yes, not well. Not well at all. You got to have a thick skin. So, of course, they want to do their own thing. And now all of a sudden, here's the communication team coming in and, telling them you can't do this, you can't do that. So, of course, we received a lot of pushback. I mean, when that first email went out to principals, because the first thing we did was reach out to the principals to get their buy-in, okay, because we needed their help in order to figure out who all has an account in your school. So we really needed their help. And I got to say, the principals have been great. Some principals are the ones that actually post on social media for their school, so that was even easier. But you got to get the principals buy-in to help you with that, so that you don't take it all on your shoulders. It's got to be a collaborative team effort. And some people are not happy because they like doing their own thing. And yeah, you're right. They don't want to consolidate, but it's much easier for the division instead of having 50 million accounts in one school, because there's a lot of sports. There's a lot of sports, and I understand they have a loyal following, but as far as it's better for records retention and things like that. So if you put it from like a compliance issue and just it's better to streamline the process, hopefully that will go over better. But trust me, it's not easy. We have pushback too. We have a lot of pushback, so it's not easy.
That makes sense. And I've heard from other school districts who say, they got pushed back initially as well. And once teachers and staff and coaches all understood that this was also in place to protect them as well, they, totally
Right.
understood.
Yes, and that's the way you have to put it. That's the way you have to explain where it's coming from and why you're doing it. And sometimes when they might not like it, but if they understand, then that helps.
Great, great. Okay, well, we have a question from Rachel about your partnership with the sheriff's office, and she would like to know what functionality for Archive Social alerts you to these threats, and do these threats need to be made on your account?
So I'm not sure, Stephanie. If I don't know if you can actually answer that. I know that we receive an email and we receive a text. I mean, I know that once. So we sat down with Archive Social and we made a list of, like, I don't know, 20 or 30 words that if these words are said on social media, that we would be alerted. And so sure enough, once they come in, we receive an email. Just a couple of hours ago, we received an email. Somebody was responding that if you move the start date of school, that's going to kill tourism. And sure enough, I got an email alert because they said kill. So I mean, it's just very very helpful. So, Archive Social, they'll sit down with you and they'll come up with a list of alert words, and it's great. So you just put in there if somebody says this, if somebody says that, then they'll alert you as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. Yep. And the feature is called RMA, but that can be talked through, but on a conversation offline. So, Delana wants to know, what pieces of information are required to be kept? Are you required to keep the content of a post? Are you required to keep replies and comments? Are you required to keep engagement metrics?
So you know what? We don't even consider it like that. We just keep everything. We just keep everything because if you get a request, you don't know what kind of request you're gonna. So we archive everything. It's not like we tell Archive Social only keep this or only keep that. We just, if somebody tweets it or posts it on Facebook, we keep it all. We keep the posts. We keep the responses. We keep it all. We keep it all. And so if we get a request, we have it, but we don't say, okay, I'm only going to keep this or I'm only going to, keep that. We keep community engagement, accomplishments, weather notice. If we're closed today because of a snow day, we keep everything. We keep everything.
Okay, great. So back to the topic of sort of collecting the information you needed. Kristen wants to know, what was your process for collecting the information for all of your social media accounts, and did you create a form that you can share?
Yes. So I will say this, Archive Social is very helpful. They actually gave us a template, and we sort of used that, and it was very successful. So we had a form. At the top of the form, we explain what we're doing, that we've teamed up with Archive Social. Here's the goal. Here's the plan. Here's what's going on. And then we had your name, your school name, what's the account, because we have some people that have Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. So they have a number of accounts. So we had them fill out the form, tell us what accounts they have. We also have them give us the name on the account and the password, because again, it should be a division password. Now, we did get some pushback because that's where we learned that some people had personal passwords and personal accounts linked to it, and that's a no-no anyway. So we had to have them go back in and change that, and that's some of the things that we're still working through now. But that helped us to see that because we didn't know that. So it actually helped us clean up our system a lot as we were going through setting this stuff up and getting the requirements to get set up. But yes, Archive Social did provide us with a template, and we would be happy to share that template with you. And what we did was we shared it with all the principals, sent it in an email to all the principals, and then they know who is running their school Facebook account or their school Twitter account. So they know, so they would go and talk to that person. Now, we also have what's called school liaisons. So we have a school liaison in every single school, and they work with the communications team anyway. So their job is to tell us about positive news going on in the school. If they have an event, they take pictures of it and give us the information for us to post, and they can post. So one of the things we did was we reached out to our school liaisons, and we also reached out to principals, because sometimes it was the school liaisons that were posting on the web or on social media. Then we also have webmasters in each of the schools. So sometimes it was the webmasters that were posting on social media. So we actually we had a connection to each of the schools. So if the principal or the school liaison or the webmaster, someone was helping us get this social media information to where we were able to get these forms for each school filled out.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. So on the topic of profanity, a great question from Kendra. She wants to know if you can talk a little bit more about profanity. Specifically, who are you monitoring for that? And what do you do when you notice inappropriate language on your social media pages?
Okay, so we monitor all SCPS accounts, so all of our division accounts, not people's personal accounts, but all Stafford County Public School Facebook, Twitter, whether it's the school, whether it's a sports team, athletic team, but anything that's a division account, we monitor. And again, we have our list of alert words, okay? Profanity is one of them. So when someone uses profanity on one of our division sites, it will alert us. It will send us an email and it will let us know. So what happens is we will then reach out to the principal and we will share this information with the principal, a screenshot, or but we'll let the principal know. A lot of times the principals can look at the picture or know who it is, but otherwise they'll find out. So we hand it over. We're not the sheriff's office. We hand it over to the principal and we let them take it from there. But we do have a student code of conduct, and that is a violation of our student code of conduct, and so they are disciplined, or they have to abide by that code of conduct, or they do face disciplinary action. And so we just give it to the principal and let them take it from there.
Okay, great. And then building on that, Angie wants to know, do you have a social media statement that you include on your accounts in reference to removing off-topic or offensive comments?
Why, yes, we do. That's in our social media policy. Yes, we do. Yep, that's in our social media policy. And again, I would be happy to share that disclaimer.
Okay, great. We would love to share that out to this audience. A question from Claire. How did you approach getting budget approved for this service?
Well, once you say the word compliance, it's not that hard. And so this is a way to be compliant with records retention. And like I said, I'm the FOIA officer. So in order for me to be compliant and get information to people, it really wasn't that hard. I did not get much pushback once I mentioned that this was a compliance issue. So we're not just doing this because we just want to, but we're trying to help the school division to be compliant with records retention and these FOIA requests. And not to mention, it's helping us so much in terms of school safety. So when I mentioned those three things, it really wasn't that difficult. And I'm a cabinet member, so I attend the superintendent's cabinet meetings, and so I just came to the cabinet meeting and said, hey, listen, this is what we're doing, and this is what's going on, and I didn't receive any pushback. But once you say the word compliance, it's not that difficult.
Okay, great. A question from Matthew on the policy. What's the importance of having a board-approved policy versus just a district-wide set of procedures or guidelines?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. For a long time, we had got district guidelines, and nobody really pays attention to those. They don't have any teeth because we had guidelines set in place that said, do not use your personal email or your personal password. The guidelines said you need to use a school division email account. Do you think people did that? No. We found so many people that just were not paying attention. Also, in one of our guidelines, we say, do not post like weather-related emergencies, or that needs to come from the communication office. We have tons of schools. I won't say tons. We have several schools or departments that'll post schools closed, and they're not supposed to do that. It's in the policy now, so it has more teeth. I'm just going to say, I can only speak from our experience. People don't really pay attention to guidelines. They really don't. And so, as a matter of fact, once this is approved in July, then we are already prepared to gather our communication information to send out to our employees to let them know, okay, we now have a policy. Because I'm going to tell you, they really were not paying attention to the guidelines. They were just doing what they want to do. But once you have a policy in place and you're breaking policy, that's a whole different ballgame. So, but that's just with us. I don't know, maybe your guidelines might work, but we just found that people really were not paying a whole lot of attention to social media guidelines.
That's really interesting.
And actually,
Um,
when we talked to our attorney, when we had talked to the school system attorney, because we had the attorney look over the policy before we took it to the board, they were shocked. They were like, "I cannot believe you don't have a social media policy." And so I was a little embarrassed. They were like, "You should have been had a policy." So the attorneys were shocked that we did not even have a policy. So, according to them, you definitely should have a social media policy.
okay, great. Great information. This is a little bit more of a sort of tactical question from Angie. And she says, do you encourage your staff to connect with students via social media? For example, do you encourage your staff to tag students in posts or encourage them to comment?
No, 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 no. We just haven't. No. Mm-mm. We sort of just we post accomplishments and positive news that's going on in the division. For example, we've had a couple television stations come out and do some really wonderful stories on our students and some of our teachers. One of our teacher of the year. So we post fun things like that, or if there's a school closing or something like that, then we post that there's a school closing. Now, I will say this, our communication analyst, she does like to have fun sometimes. She likes to have fun on there. She'll post little surveys like, what are you going to do for summer break? And then she'll take a little survey, and people have the different things they can click on. Or what flavor ice cream do you like? So, she has fun with things sometimes, but no, not really tagging students. No, not really. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. We have a question from Courtney, again about the social media policy and kind of the specifics of it. And she wants to know, does your new social media policy include information about the creation of new accounts associated with the school?
Yes, that's at the top. That is at the top. Yes, it definitely does. That's one of the first things you will see when you open it up. Yes, because we want people to start off on the right track. Because, like I said, we had so many people setting up accounts the wrong way. So one of the things that when you first read the policy, it's about setting up new accounts and the proper way to do that and what you should be using to do that. Suppose someone, gets fired or no longer works here, and we don't have their username and password, but it's a division account. So that's one of the things that's really big for us is just getting a handle on that and getting those personal usernames and passwords switched over.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because, we're seeing kind of a lot of questions on that circle around this topic of the mechanics of getting this all set up and collecting all this information, which makes sense because there's so much information gathering that needs to go into this. But Peg specifically wants to know, how did it go over with the staff when you had to ask them all to provide their usernames and passwords?
Oh, it didn't go well at all. It didn't. We got a lot of pushback. It didn't go well at all. I had the teacher union contact me, and they were just like, "You can't do this. You can't ask them for their password." And I said, "We're not asking them for their password because they should not have their personal password. That's the problem." So we had to get through that because at first the teachers union was contacting us because they thought that we were asking for their personal email information. And so we had to get that straight that no, these are people that are monitoring the division Facebook account. I don't want your personal Facebook account. So we received a lot of pushback. When that first email went out, it was like, whoa, people were not happy. And so we had to we actually had to send out a second and third email, just to clarify, just to help them understand why we're doing this. Here's what we need. We don't want your personal information. However, you shouldn't have your personal information connected to a division account anyway. So it took some time. It took some time, and it's died down and people are going with it, but we got a lot of pushback. We did. We did. People just, why do you have to do this? I don't understand. I don't, and when we kept coming back with compliance, 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 just keep letting them know we're doing this because we want to be in compliance. Also, it helps us from a safety point, as far as monitoring all of those accounts, because we have a lot. I mean, we're still in the process of trying to streamline and cut back, but we still have a ways to go.
Interesting. And, that makes me think of another school communications director I spoke to earlier this year who also, got that pushback from her staff with regards to the issue of getting usernames and passwords. And the way that she explained it to me was that once I explained to them that this was more about protecting them than about anything else, about making sure, if you're ever asked for example, a deleted comment that you were involved in, we have it for you. We're able to provide it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then they were
Absolutely.
really on board.
Absolutely. And then, for example, say there's a court case. Say you have a parent that says their child was bullied and the school didn't do enough, and you had postings on social media of anti-bullying campaigns and all the proactive services for that. You can use that. You can use that. Or if a parent posts something on social media telling the school division that their child is being bullied, and you've got a record of that, you've got a record of that and your response to it. So all of that can be used, and now you've archived it and you have all of that can be used in court. So it's just a good way, to protect yourself, and again, you're in compliance.
That's great. And that's a really good point about, having sort of that proof. I think that's probably one of the most common uses in school districts for this kind of service. So,
Yeah.
so again, tons of great questions here. I don't think we're going to be able to get through them all. But this has been a great conversation. So what I really want to do now is I'm going to send up a follow-up email in the next day or two. It'll come from myself. And we'll have a link to this webinar recording so you can share it with other people in your district if that's something you want to do, or you just want to rewatch it. And then you can also reply back to that email personally to me and just, let me know if you want to meet up with one of the Archive Social team members at NSPRA, or if you'd like, to schedule a call and we can talk specifically about the records laws in your state and how they apply to your school social media and how we might be able to help. So feel free to shoot me an email if that's something you'd like to do. And then finally, I just want to, first of all, say thank you to NSPRA for giving us the opportunity to partner on this event. And thank you to Cherie one more time for just a fantastic conversation. Cherie, we really appreciate it. Great job today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to help out. Anytime I can help someone else, I don't mind. I really don't mind. But this really has been very helpful for our whole entire team.
Oh, great. That's great to hear. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We really appreciate it, and we will get that follow-up email out soon. Thanks.